Warning: the following video may have language that some viewers may find offensive, and others are already offended. Viewer discretion is advised, but not really. No animals were hurt in the making of this 4-hour feature film.
Today on the show, we're going to be talking about a really important topic. I have Angela Geddes in here, and she is a counselor?
Yeah, I'm a social worker therapist, yeah.
Okay, and we're going to be talking about FASD, which is
Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder.
Spectrum Disorder. Now, we were just talking about this before we opened the show about, I had a lot of people, and I kept saying it too, was fetal alcohol syndrome disorder.
Yes.
So now it's gone to spectrum. So let's talk about this and get into what this all is.
Yeah, so I can't remember exactly the year, but a few years ago, we in the FASD community kind of worked together to decide that we need to have some common terms that we're all using that are better understood. So fetal alcohol syndrome used to be a diagnostic term that helped to describe the impact of prenatal alcohol exposure that left a person with visible signs. So there would be facial features. So the eyes would appear to be a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit wider apart, and then a flat philtrum up here and a flat upper lip. And lots of times these kids with fetal alcohol syndrome would be medically frail, maybe a little bit smaller. Lots of times weight and height were impacted, and it is a whole body experience. So the diagnostic terms at that point were fetal alcohol syndrome, and then partial fetal alcohol syndrome meant that you had 2 out of the 3 features that are known to be related to alcohol exposure. And then there was alcohol-related neurodevelopmental disabilities, and you can see there's other terms that were used to describe the impact that varies, but is significant for individuals who've been exposed to alcohol prenatally. So you can tell already it's confusing, right? But what we also were finding is that, and research is very clear, that 90% of individuals who've been impacted significantly by alcohol exposure do not have the facial features. And there are many people who have real difficulties that are the same, that look like you and I. Right? So 90% do not have noticeable differences. So that's huge. So that means we were leaving a lot of people out of the diagnostic criteria. And then also when you say the word partial FASD, it kind of means less than. But we know now that actually individuals who are diagnosed or have all the facial features actually do better than people who don't have the facial features or look different. And you might be wondering why, but I think we all intrinsically have an innate, desire to help people who we know need help. So we know that when people look different, when we look like, that we can do things, or we're like everybody else, but we're still struggling with inconsistent performance. I'll say we'll get into the details a little bit more, but when you're struggling with impulsivity or bad decision making, it's easy to chalk that up to just poor decisions or bad parenting, right? But that's not the case. And so then it was decided in Canada and in other parts across the world, but our Canadian guidelines now say fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, either with sentinel features, so with all the 3 features, or without. So there's 2 diagnostic terms and a third designation that says we know there's been prenatal alcohol exposure, but parts of the assessment have not yet been complete. So they are at risk of a complex neurodevelopmental disorder as a result.
Now, so you're dealing with, like in today's world, with new parents and new babies and whichever, but I grew up in a time when partying and social gatherings, and you're going back in the 50s, 60s, every Saturday night, I remember as a little kid, my dad going to the garage to visit with the guys, and the women went off and did their thing. And there was parties and drinking, and people did back then. They smoked.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you didn't smoke, you were looked at. Well, that's weird. What's the matter with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Times have changed.
So do you find? Okay, so you're dealing with the new families now, but is there a lot of adults like us walking around now that, you know, okay, we look okay. Well, I never looked okay, but you know what I mean. But yeah, there's times I do know there has been times that I've gone through parts that memory was not well. Like I did, and then I did a lot of talks with my doctor and stuff, and I know it's getting kind of a little personal here, but
yeah, I appreciate
I found for me, what we found was aspartame. I was drinking so much of because I'm an insulin diabetic.
Right.
I've talked open about that and different challenges that I've been through, and lows and highs, and but anyway, I had to get off that aspartame. They actually told me, okay, I'm a tea drinker. My family's English. I went back to sugar. Yeah. And I was like, what? Yeah. You want me to take sugar? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, do it. My problem now is I got away from it for a while. I like a beer. I like to sit down at night and have one. Doctor said nothing better than a nice sleep pill. Yeah. But back in that generation when all that grew up, have you come across families now that maybe it's their parents that are
for sure. This is an indiscriminate condition, and it is everywhere. So FASD is in all of our circles, and this is not a new condition. So we've known about it formally since 1972, I think, and that's where the first, real research and diagnosis. But we've known since biblical times that, women who consume alcohol have, I think the term was feeble children, or, and the language obviously is not really very kind, and, but alcohol is a big part of our culture. So, right now we've got 80% of Canadians consume alcohol regularly. We have over 50% of pregnancies are unplanned. So when you do that math, we know that there's a lot of unintentional prenatal alcohol exposure that is impactful. So, I mean, I've had psychologists say, well, it can't be FASD. If that was the case, everybody in the 70s would have it because of what you're saying.
Right, yeah.
And it can't, and I've had friends to say to me, oh, Ange, it can't be that bad. If that's the case, we'd all have it and we're all fine. Like our parents all drank and we're all fine. And I said, well, two things is my response is, first of all, define fine. So, we have a mental health crisis globally, but certainly in our neighborhoods, right? There's a mental health crisis. So how many people are we mistreating? We're supporting a variety of mental health conditions, including PTSD and autism and ADHD and anxiety and depression, personality disorders that are actually also related to, prenatal alcohol exposure, right? So there's so many overlapping characteristics. It's really hard to tease it all out. And you mentioned aspartame, absolutely. Like alcohol is not the only thing that goes on that creates. But alcohol is a big piece of our mental health story. So
So FASD, does that also bipolarism? Is that a part of?
Well, there's crossover overlapping symptoms. Okay. So like again, I think that there's a lot of people that are misdiagnosed. I think it's really important to understand that we now know. So when I was first doing my research, I finished my thesis back in 2016. So I finished my master's degree in social work, which all of my research was on fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And at that time, we thought the prevalence rates was 1% of the population, general population, based on very conservative, and there's risks to getting confirmation of alcohol exposure in pregnancy, right? So we know it's a low estimate at 1%, but then we now know it's 4 to 5%. So that went from 1 out of 100 to 1 in 25, which means there's one person in every classroom that is experiencing the impact that could be diagnosed had we had enough diagnostic services. So right now in Canada, we have 6 million, who should be diagnosed with FASD, but only 2% globally have had access to an assessment. So to your point, there are a lot of people and a lot more adults walking around with undiagnosed FASD than children, just given the population numbers and the fact that alcohol's been around in our culture forever and ever. Now, part of the problem that we're seeing is that there's an increase in people drinking today than there was even when our parents were younger, right? And, you know, women are targeted in terms of advertising. Like, women are drinking much more, and it's much more social and much more, you know, yeah. So
I'm wondering with that though too, is it our world today is so different. I mean, to when we grew up, it seemed to be a more laid back. You knew your neighbors. People talked. You were friendly. It's now it's fast. It's a hustle. It's get out of my way. I got to get going. It's you know, you strike, and our alcohol is stronger.
Well, I think the alcohol is stronger, and then accessibility is there, right?
There's a huge one.
And I think that, you know, when I was growing up, like I wasn't a drinker. I was a bit of an anomaly, but you know, there was really bad wine or beer or liquor, you know, or beer or I don't know, spirits of some sort, right? That you drank. There were your options, and coolers and those fancy kind of drinks that taste delicious, right?
Coolers are good.
Yeah, like they taste really good, but we're targeting young people. And, you know, just I was at the park the other day and saw a wrapper of marijuana gummies that were colorfully wrapped that looked like they were jujubes. Like you could see a kid taking that and eating
so
them,
dangerous.
right? So we're marketing it to be fun and friendly and accessible and opportune, and that's fine. Like, I'm not here to say that we shouldn't be drinking, although there's lots of research out there indicating that there's some risks, and we know that. I'm not here to say that you shouldn't be drinking. What I am here to say is that we all should do whatever we can to make sure that pregnancies are planned and pregnancies are healthy, because even small amounts of alcohol matter. So there's research out there indicating 1 drink per week will increase your risk for depression by 50%, for example.
Wow.
The Canadian guidelines for diagnosis indicate the criteria are 2 binge drinks throughout the pregnancy.
Just 2?
2 binge drinks, which means, you know, it's 2 binge, like standard drinks is like 1.5 ounces of alcohol, 1 small beer, you know, those are equivalent, right? And 5 ounces of wine. But when you go to a restaurant to get a glass of wine, it's often 6 ounces or 9 or 10 ounces. Those are your choices of wine. Right. So you have 2 big glasses of wine. That's essentially a binge drink. That's not that hard.
No.
And with so many pregnancies unplanned, you do that even before you're aware of the pregnancy. Yeah. There's risk to the developing baby. So I'm not here to say that everybody exposed to that amount of alcohol is going to end up with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. But I am here to say that's what meets criteria. And I've been on the other end of an assessment team listening to a mom stream, you know, with tears saying to me, "Are you sure? I only drank 3 times before I knew I was pregnant." And this little guy had quite a scattered learning profile, right? This is important. I'm so grateful to be here because these messages need to be shared.
So the most impactful part, I'm just going to guess on this, but from conception, the early stages, is this the most critical part? Is there a section in stages where it would affect more?
I want to say that everything's developing 100% of the time. So this is a whole body experience with 400 comorbidities. So everything from autoimmune conditions to early onset of arthritis, memory problems later on, like celiac disease, you know, like there's so many heart conditions, hearing sometimes, eyes, skin conditions. So there are so many, it's a whole body. So I can't say that to be true. I mean, facial features, for example, take place between day 18 and 21 following conception. So that's the only time that if alcohol is consumed during that time, that's when baby's face is going to change. If you're not drinking during that time, but you continue to drink throughout, your baby will look normal, but not. If you drink just at that time and you stop drinking because this was a girl's weekend away, or you didn't know you were pregnant and you had a good, you know, weekend where there was a lot of alcohol consumed, for example, and you don't drink because then you find out you're pregnant, that baby may not end up with, you know, meeting criteria for the condition, but here we are looking different.
Like I never thought, even one night out, I have seen in the past somebody pregnant, like literally crawling to the bathroom, you know, gonna start getting sick or whatever, but how impactful that is.
Yeah.
would
that's
never
what I think.
thought.
I don't, you know, people who drink for a variety of different reasons, and none of which is to cause harm to anyone.
No.
So we need to be really careful to say, like, this is not about shame. This is not about blame. This is about, let's bring these conversations back home to our own kitchen tables so that, you know, I can see you're being enlightened, right?
Yeah.
And then our job is to share that with our circles and to share that more with our circles, because typical prevention messaging is not working.
Well, nobody wants to have a baby that's
Compromised
yeah.
in any way.
Yeah.
All we want is our babies and our people and our family and the people we love to reach their potential.
healthy,
Right?
healthy. Yeah,
Life is hard.
yeah.
We don't need to make it harder,
I know.
right?
I
So
know.
absolutely.
Wow.
And yeah,
That's so.
it's a big deal.
So you talked about growing. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sudbury, no drinking there.
No,
No drinking there in that
well,
mining
come on,
town.
Sudbury Saturday nights.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, so
we
I
kind of know a song about that.
Yes, for sure. So no, I grew up in Sudbury, and yeah, I was born in Parry Sound. My dad's from Parry Sound. My mom's from just south of North Bay, in a little town called Powassan. So
Yeah,
we
I know
were
it well.
very fortunate to have a cottage there. So we spent our summers there and our winters snowmobiling in Parry Sound. Not a bad.
So you probably know Burke's Falls.
I do.
Yeah, that's where my family is.
It's beautiful there. Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
it.
lovely. I love it. Yeah.
So going to school, what made you decide this is the path that you wanted to take?
You know, I think that I've always been a bit of a helper, for better or for worse. But I don't know, I just always had a soft spot. To be honest, I think it might have been Elvis Presley's song, The Ghetto, that
yes.
really did impact me
Really?
to start. And I was young, like very young when I heard it. My mom wasn't even a fan. He died when I was, you know, very young. So it was later that I really appreciated him. But I can remember listening to The Ghetto and thinking about, you know, the little boys growing up in neighborhoods where they had access to guns instead of toys. And I just wanted to do what I could to bring some sort of, you know, I don't know, give us a equal playing field.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, I think that was part of what it did. So I went to Cambrian College and I became a child and youth counselor, a child and youth worker. That was my focus. And then I went back to school part-time, after I had my own family, to learn more about not just the child, because I knew the child and the behaviors are a symptom of something bigger, which is symptom of family, symptom of community. And so I went back to school to learn, to focus on psychology and education and family. And then I decided to go back again to get my master's in social work. And I had to do a qualifying year, which I focused on Aboriginal social work so that I could learn something new, you know, different than in that angle of social work, which was lovely. And but I was, you know, my very first little person I ever supported had fetal alcohol syndrome. And so again, you're imprinted in a way that you can't forget, right? I was just a brand new student doing my first placement in Parry Sound, actually. And but I always say that was a good thing because it imprinted me on the risks associated with alcohol. But because he had fetal alcohol syndrome, which is no longer a diagnostic term, we all thought that it took a lot of alcohol, and this was rare because he was so frail and he was so in need of so much support. He was 8 and in junior kindergarten, you know, so he was so delayed in so many areas and really a lot of trouble with his sensory processing and regulation and that kind of thing. So when I fast forward and worked in justice and worked in schools, I saw a lot of people that behaved in similar ways but didn't look that way. So I thought it was parenting or, you know, cultural or environmental things that were wrong. I didn't realize that so many were brain-based conditions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so some of those symptoms, and so you're getting into behavioral, emotional, social difficulties that may look like laziness, overreactions, meltdowns. Man, I've seen so many kids with that, especially in the last, when my kids grew up, but meltdowns and just general public overreactions, just wow.
Yeah.
Difficulty keeping friends, there's a big one. This is probably just the touch, the tip, right?
Well, it is. It's just what some of the symptoms that we kind of, you know, I like to share that information because it helps people to stop in their tracks and say, this could be brain-based. This could be sensory, stuff, and so much deeper going on. This meltdown is not just he didn't get his own way and parents are spoiling him, or her. So yeah, it means that sometimes it's the kid that gets bullied at school, or just really makes friends easily but can't keep them, or doesn't really understand the concept of sharing in the same way, or taking turns, or that kind of thing.
So what does a parent do? Like there's one here, the inconsistent memory, but may lead a child who can recall directions, but may need to remind it about curfew, even though they've already known it for a long time. But that your child is out there and never comes home. Well, I forgot I had to come back, whatever. I mean, obviously that's not always FASD, but how does a parent take this, sees these check marks, and then where do they go from that? Where do they go? What's the first step that a parent should take?
Well, I think their first step would go to their family doctor, indicating that there are some, I like to refer to them as puzzling behaviors, because typical parenting strategies work, and I see a lot of families that have been blamed for the misbehavior of their children when really they can't do it. So, for example, the inconsistent memory, like I can remember working with a young girl who finally learned how to tie her shoes, and she was so proud. She's at school telling everybody, I've learned how to tie my shoes, and showing. And the very next day, she's the last one in the room getting ready to go out for recess, and the teacher comes over, and obviously the teacher's trying to encourage her, saying, you could do this. You did it yesterday. Come on, you put your shoes on. Let's go. Let's get outside, and trying to encourage her. But the problem was not only like she couldn't remember how to tie her shoes, but she could remember that yesterday she knew how. So imagine how frustrating that is, right? It's like talking to somebody who's an elder who may have some cognitive decline and is aware that I used to know how to do this and now I don't, right? So it's this dignity piece. So this teacher didn't do anything wrong, but an approach something like, hey, do you need some help with that? Let's go outside and, and just go over and help remind her how to do it, rather than, you know how to do this.
I can see that snowballing pretty quick too, especially if you have parents that are not supportive. Well, I guess not just parents, but I know some older teachers back in my day would look at me and go, what the hell's the matter with you? Are you dumb? Like, come on.
Well, that absolutely. And then you've got a meltdown because the child doesn't feel supported and is embarrassed and doesn't understand why this is happening.
Withdrawal
and also feels terrible. I can't even tie my own shoes, and this teacher thinks I should be able to. Like they're just all so, and why can't I? I had a candy last time I went to the grocery store. Why can't I have one today? It makes no sense to somebody who has very rigid thought processes, and sometimes it's very complicated. I could talk about this for a week, but
as I'm going through the stuff that you sent me, I mean, it just goes on and on. Like there is a ton of different things that. And from motor skills.
Right, and one of the things that gets damaged in the brain is, like, I like to try to describe it like this cord, or an electrical cord. If you took scissors to it and there was snips, you'd get sparks. And sometimes the messaging wouldn't go exactly where it was supposed to go. So that kind of damage is done in the brain at times. So sometimes the memory is bang on. If I want my arm to go up here, it goes up. If I have damage in my brain, it might go sideways, or it might not do it the first time. And I might be a bit clumsy. So sometimes people can feel things here, they can't feel things down here. It's that inconsistency because the information is up there. It's just, I can't always get it when I need it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So the parent goes to the doctor, sees their family doctor, and says, hey, I've noticed there's some weird things happening here and whatever. So is it then the doctor that, do they go to a different kind of specialist? Do they go to, are they just, we'll refer you to, someone like yourself in your office, whatever, like, how does the next steps go if a parent is really concerned and sees this? And okay, let's say, because there are many doctors that you go in and talk to, and doctors like, I just think it's not,
you'll outgrow it.
It's not that. There's something else, right? How does a parent move on to the next step to talk to somebody else?
Yeah, I think that the important thing to remember is that the gap widens depending, like, as kids age. Okay. So when they're younger, you can kind of get used to the, you know, the busy little boy. He's got a little slow toilet training. He's got a speech impediment potentially, or he's a little, you know, a little bit slower with speech development. Some of these milestones might be a little bit slower. Some of them they're right on, but there's just some puzzling kind of behaviors. And, you know, the little boy that's not afraid of anything, for example, or interrupts conversations on a regular basis. We just chalk that up to like, oh, he's got no fear. He's a performer, you know, that kind of thing, right? We chalk these things up to being normal. Normal, I say it.
What is normal?
Exactly.
What
That's
is it?
my point. So, but by the time they get to school, then maybe the teacher's saying, you know what, there's some, you know, so then we refer, like the diagnosis requires a really good understanding of speech and language and how that's forming and and how people process information, which is very complicated. Then occupational therapists would assess things like sensory, how people feel and touch, and gross and fine motor skills, that kind of thing. And then we'd have a psychologist do a really good psychological evaluation, a neuropsych. And usually what we see, or always what we see with people who've been impacted by alcohol, is what I refer to as pockets of brilliance, but then some real discrepancies in function. So maybe, as I said, with memory, like directionally, bang on. You know, he can get you from point A to point B, but working memory around, you know, planning and organizing, or remembering off, you know, the top of his head what time curfew is, even though it's been there every day, might not be available.
Okay, so through counseling, so somebody, you are working with a family now, say, let's just say an 8-year-old. Is there stuff that you can do that helps them improve in, I mean, if there's damage done from alcohol, how do you repair that? Can you repair it, or is it learning techniques somewhere else to bypass that area?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, we're really happy to hear more about neuroplasticity, and that the brain is always growing, and that more practice at anything, you can develop new pathways and, you know, get past. So there's definitely hope for that. But I think the most important thing that I can do is I can do a really good social work assessment. And there are very few of us who work with confidence and competence in this area, which is another reason why I offer training, and I've written the book and that kind of thing, because we need more.
Yeah, and we're going to get into your book too.
So, but the biggest gift that I can give people and families is recognizing that it's not their fault, and that they have legitimate difficulties with impulsivity, for example, or overthinking, or ruminating, and so that how do we parent differently, because traditional parenting strategies don't work in the same way. So we have to think about creative ways, you know, different ways to get to the same place, because we all want the same thing for our kids. So I do a really good assessment, and then we have a really good studio that's very sensory sensitive and aware, and so we help little people accept some of their areas of challenge, but we focus really on their values and their strengths, and help to increase their own view of themselves, and then maybe be better able to embrace the support they need.
Is there little things that parents can do at home, like if it's a memory thing? When I went through, I was talking about aspartame. There was a part of my life that memory I was forgetting basic stuff. And anyway, I got off the aspartame, got back to sugar. It took like 3 months. Yeah. And I did notice things. But then at that time, and my wife was big on that mahjong game where they're like dominoes and all the different patterns, and they have the Japanese symbols on them, and you had to match them up, right? So I got into that. Yeah. And I started playing more and more of that. And the more I played it, it made you a lot of memory recall. And the more I got into it, I realized that thoughts and I was retaining a lot more stuff. So can parents do that?
With young ones? Yes, there are lots of things that we can do. We can stay away from the screens a little bit more and focus on, those back and forth interactions with people. And I mean, there's lots of tools that we can offer. And really it's about reducing the stimuli. Like sometimes bright lights can be a real problem. Sometimes kids with sensitivities can hear things that you and I can't, and that can be really bothersome, right? So just recognizing what their areas of comfort are, what their areas of discomfort are, and doing our best to mitigate and shift the environment so that it's calmer, more customized for the needs.
I'm going to go on a limb here anyway and say I would rather bring my kid and go your route than the doctor that everything is, well, take this medication. put your kid on Ritalin, put your kid on this, and
Right. Well, yeah, I think
the pharmaceutical world is in a little bit too much stuff.
Yeah, I think
My thoughts.
I'm in the school that there's a need. Like if you have diabetes, you need insulin, you need some, and this is a medical condition. However, I also think that the least amount of anything that's not meant to be there should be in our bodies. So let's try other things first.
Absolutely.
And I think sleep hygiene, and lots of our littles and our big people
I think
don't
that's
sleep
a big
very
one
well.
right there. Sleep.
Sleep is a big one. Eating, differently, that kind of stuff. There's lots of things we can do to make little changes, but also having patience and recognizing that the children are not willfully misbehaving, I think is the biggest gift we can give parents. And for individuals, like we just assessed somebody in their 30s, and they read my book and tears were streaming down her face, and she said, for the first time in my life, I knew it wasn't my fault. I read myself in these pages, and now it makes sense,
And how many of them were probably thinking, what's the matter with me? Or I'm alone.
That's the biggest thing. So what this person said was, it was the gift of compassion, self-compassion, but also the compassion for the people around me, because I know I'm a little tricky sometimes, So she said, I have compassion for other people who are, trying to support me in good ways.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure, well, my dad is long gone now, but my mom at 95, but if she had her memory still, I'm sure she'd say I was a little more than difficult when I was growing up.
Well,
Boy,
yeah,
I put them through the ringer, but.
So my oldest that I'm supporting right now is 75 years old, who believes he has had, he knows he was exposed.
Yeah.
But he also was, very successful in many parts of his life.
Yeah.
There were lots of, impulsive decisions, lots of mistakes made, a lot of jobs that shifted, but he was very resilient and moved on.
Here's one I can ask you, because you're the perfect person, but all the people that tell me about mental health and things that are going on, and I've always said, I don't care who you are, we all have mental health at some point. When you get down, depressed, everybody goes through. Diabetics, depression is huge.
Right.
There are times I go through, why am I doing this anymore? I'm sick of taking insulin. I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. You go through those. I've been through it. You get really angry. Yeah. I'm done with this. I don't care what happens to me. I'm stopping. Yeah. And then you clear up and you think, that's probably not a great road to take. But I've always said, if you have a brain, you're going to have mental health. Yeah. It don't matter. Well, I don't care who you are. You, from happy to sad to tough times to bereavement.
Well, and there's a difference between situational depression and then clinical. Yeah. Right?
And that's where you need to distinguish.
That's right.
Where that line is.
And most of the people that I see, in fact, I haven't seen any yet, that doesn't have some impact on their view of self and mood, whether it's anxiety or depression. Okay.
I had a very good friend of mine that went through a separation. And then he came to me later, after everything was all settled, but he said, I totally understand why suicide, people over relationships, why they do it. And he said, it wasn't the fact that I was upset that she was gone. I wanted to end my life to stop the pain. He said it wasn't that, it was the hurt. And he said, that's why. He said, I didn't realize how deep, that. So he...
Yeah, those circumstances can be humbling, right?
Yeah.
And life is a series of learning opportunities.
So for kids, so even like this going and demeaning them and putting them down or calling them names or something, that can really...
That's worse than the diagnosis itself, in my opinion. I see that that outside impact is harder.
And teen suicide is a serious thing. We've seen it. Different things that I'm not saying it's all related to this, but there are a lot of other, I think, things that contribute.
Yeah, for sure.
Add into
but our kids with undiagnosed brain-based conditions are much higher risk.
Yeah. Okay, so your book. So it's called A Complicated and Beautiful Brain. A Guide to Understanding the Effects of Prenatal Alcohol Exposure and What Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder looks like across a lifespan. So what? How was the book? Like writing this getting it published?
Yeah.
How's the sales going? Like, is it reaching?
Well, yeah, it's doing. I think it's doing really well. It's a required read in some post-secondary education, and the feedback that I've been getting. I teach at Fanshawe every once in a while. I go in as a guest.
Oh dear.
And different community colleges and community, we do quite a bit of training. But it is a required read in some of the classes, and it's been good. It helps to bring to life some of the research. And the book is full of QR codes and access to further reading and really validating everything that I'm saying in it. But what's different about my book and other books that you might read is that it is really what we see on the front line and what families are telling me. So it's those puzzling little inconsistent performance issues that we see that most people just get confused about.
Okay, so your book, to break it down, it's going to talk about this in general. Will it talk about, okay, so we'll go through some of the symptoms that goes in here. Then it talks about next steps, like how to get the help.
Yeah, it does. It does talk about that for sure. And I mean, any early years center, if your people are little, but mental health agencies. But unfortunately, in Ontario, anyways, mental health is funded through our Ministry of Health.
Okay.
Developmental services are funded through a different ministry altogether. So sometimes FASD doesn't fit in very well. So we have to look for specialized services.
Well, let's bring in somebody here that I understand too. It's your anniversary to this gentleman.
Yes.
We've had actually this fella in before.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get him to come over and bring a chair. Now, why we're going to bring this remarkable man in here.
Oh, remarkable. Wow.
There he is. For those that know, may recognize this voice.
Here.
But
you can come closer. There we go.
Let's see. Oh, look at that.
There we go.
There you are.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, I'll just pop that back out a little bit. So Jamie Warren, everybody, this is Angela's other half.
Yes.
To Jamie, Angela is his better half. Yeah.
It's our anniversary, absolutely.
It is. Happy anniversary.
She is the better half, actually.
That is fantastic. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. You two look perfect.
Whoa.
You do. Good couple.
No, we're
Good
good.
couple.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
You're about as happy as I am at a McDonald's buffet.
Wow, nice.
There you go.
That makes me happy. So why we're bringing Jamie in is there's a special song that just came out not too long ago. I'm going to let Angela talk about it, and Jamie, you talk about the process of putting this together. And it was quite when I heard the story, I've heard the song, love it. I think it's so cool. The memories of for me, what it brought out too. So there we go. Now I'm so excited. I've hit my own mic.
Percussive.
So,
It's a percussive.
Here, yes, it is.
No, it speaks to I think it speaks to a lot of people. But it was written, so we offer a variety of different creative interventions at our center. And one of them is a small gathering, and it's small because too many people in a room is hard for people who have social difficulties or are upset with sounds and loud music and that kind of stuff. So we had a small gathering. And the night was focused on songwriting and just expressing ourselves. And so Jamie was invited, and he is a volunteer with my center, so he signs the confidentiality agreements, and everybody agrees for him to be there. This is very, under, So, we sat around a table. He had his guitar. Everybody wrote down what they were thinking about or what message they wanted to share. As the facilitator and the therapist in the room, I kind of took the cards and shuffled them all together, read them out anonymously so that nobody was,
centered out
or speaking specifically. And then we collectively came up with a theme. And I've always known he's a good songwriter, obviously. Yeah. But even I was.
Yeah, he's wrote a couple.
I was pretty impressed because within, I'm not kidding, 15 minutes he had a verse and a chorus. But I think what I want to say, what I want to say though is that collectively in that room, there was FASD, but there was trauma, there was domestic violence, there was mental health, there was learning difficulties, family disruption, collectively. We didn't all have it, do you know what I mean? But collectively in that room, ADHD, learning disabilities, it's a lot.
That is a lot.
It's a lot, but beautiful, loving, creative. And when people are given a chance to shine, it's just like it could bring me to tears. So
Awesome.
you carry on.
So-
Well, no, it was one of those things where it was an interesting evening. I enjoy those group settings. I've taught songwriting before, and the reason I bring that up is I enjoy that too, engaging a bunch of people at the same time. And at times you can take somebody's song that exists, right, and talk amongst people and evolve that song. So it was similar to that. The two lines that I miss my old mom and that dusty road to home, which is the hook line, but it's two lines connected. And those were the theme. They also poked me, kind of going, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And so that melody came out, and then so where the song was going. And when you have sessions like that, what I suggest to people getting involved is don't write lyrics. Just tell me a story. Tell me what you're thinking. Because sometimes when people think of lyrics and rhymes, it sort of pulls back what they're really wanting to flow with, right? And that's why.
So the theme part, when we talked about what is the message that we want to share, that was pretty cool.
And so it made it, I wasn't conscripted to this specific rhyme setup, courtesy of the words I got. So it gave me a lot of freedom. And it was fun.
But all the words were used. Like, it was pretty amazing how he incorporated every one of our words. And we all, my words are in there too.
So basically, you took this song from everybody writing a verse or something, just
a couple of
feeling,
lines
a story, or a memory.
Yeah.
And you take all these cards and form this.
Create a chorus. And what happens sometimes too is I think it's got a pretty cool, phrasing and an internal rhyme and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's the songwriting element of it. But they were the words that existed on these 8 little cards.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. And my message, I always say, is that when we know better, we can do better.
Yeah.
And then he added, I'm going to do better. And it was just so beautiful because that's what the kids were saying, that they wanted, and I call them kids, they're not kids, they're between 16 and 24, but kids to me, but they wanted to do better, and so that message was very clear, and to me it was very powerful.
Well, and that's one of your lines.
Taglines,
right?
my hashtag is when we know better, we can do better. Yeah.
Which is funny. When I wrote, here's a funny insight. I was writing the song, right? I came home and then I was finishing the thing, and I messed that up.
You did.
I didn't actually remember that. I had it, when you know better, or something like that. And she goes, that's not how it goes.
That's not how it goes. Pay attention, Jamie.
Pay attention,
Jamie.
Now we're getting back to the anniversary.
That's right.
I should listen a little better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, but no, it was a beautiful experience. So we're having his daughter come in November. She's going to do a songwriting session too.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So we just try to engage the kids and the adults with what interests them. And
Awesome.
One time we did a really cool session. It was neurodiversity and plant diversity. So we brought a whole bunch of different plants and focused on how different they were, how beautiful they were, how unique they were, and what they needed.
Yeah.
And every one of them needed something different in order to thrive. And so that's how our brains work too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So the book.
Yes.
Where can people get your book?
It's on Amazon, actually.
Amazon?
So it's available, if you have a group or a community or a classroom or anything like that, then contact me directly.
Okay.
And at angelageddes.ca you can find me and contact, and we do group orders too. But
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Jamie, the song.
Dusty Road to Home, and
Dusty
you
Road.
can find it on all my platforms, but it's on
All
Apple
streaming-
Music, all the streaming.
All
formats.
streaming.
Opportunities.
JamieWarren.com.
You'll
That's
find it there.
on your website.
Yeah.
Purchase album, CD.
Everything across
whichever.
Apple Music to wherever you'll,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a YouTube
Awesome.
video too that's really very
Yeah,
well done.
on
Jessie
YouTube.
T helped us with that.
Okay.
So
So that's Jessie.
Jessie T helped us
I
with
know.
that. It was wonderful.
Yeah. She's out west, I believe. Or
She's
was
back
she? Or
home
just
now.
she's back
Yeah,
home now.
yeah.
The CCMAs. Is that
Yeah.
what it was out there?
Yeah.
You didn't
Edmonton.
get there this year.
Didn't go this year, no.
No.
Yeah, we had so much going on.
I
here.
can't. I keep saying to him, I want to see him watch a show, and he's back up on the stage.
Oh yeah,
the
that
CCMAs.
would be nice.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I think he's
Been there a few
definitely
times
got
in
it.
the past. Yeah.
In the
Okay.
past. All right. So thanks for coming in.
Thank
Great
you
topic.
for having me. My goodness.
Is there anything else? Just before we sign off?
I just hope that it's inspired a few people to learn a little bit more.
Okay.
And,
I mean,
yeah.
we didn't even touch into it.
I know.
We
I know.
didn't even
So
get
much
anywhere
to
near
learn,
it. So, and
but,
we're already 44 minutes in.
Yeah,
so.
no, it's great though. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so the book, I'll put the link up for Amazon. You can get the book there. And then what was your website?
It's angelageddes.ca.
.ca.
Yeah, so if you Google Angela Geddes, and I have a studio right here in St. Thomas, but we have people coming as far as Ottawa. I Zoom people in from all across Ontario.
Don't just do walk-ins and like people.
No, people have to call.
Is it referral?
There's a contact though. Just on the website, just press the contact and set up a consult with me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks
Okay.
for coming in.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome. Thank
All
you.
right. Oh, and I don't just see FASD. I see people across the spectrum with all kinds of things, including some of our veterans, which I'm very honored to do.
Oh, yeah, that's another one. Yeah, about our veterans. So what is it with veterans? Just really quick. Is it just like emotional support? Like what is it?
Our veterans struggle with chronic pain, with PTSD for sure, and depression, and all kinds of things. So
I had the president of the Firefighter Association in here, and we were talking about firefighters and PTSD. And
I'm also a provider for our OPP and our Indigenous and Métis families as well. So it's across. Like we have a team.
Keep her address, folks.
Yeah, we have a team.
She's a pretty a smarty pants. Like she's actually very talented and very
awesome.
Yeah, I'd look her up.
He's got to be nice to you today.
Nice. I think I'm getting flowers.
I meant that though too. Yes.
And a golf game.
That is true.
Okay,
All right,
folks. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Angela. Thanks. Jamie,
You're
for
welcome.
coming in.
Thank
Your
you.
song is awesome. Your book, fantastic.
We do make a good team sometimes.
You do make a good team. You even make a good look.
All right.
There you go. All right, folks.
Okay,
Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. There we go.
There we go.
Couldn't wait to get away, say goodbye and break away, find a better life than what I knew. Running the road to happiness, it's up and down, it rolls and twists, through the trees and round the Collard Grove. I miss my old mom and that dusty road to home. Don't you think that there's a better place that we could be? But I don't see it there. Do you care at all? I don't know that we could ever be the same. I just want to say I don't want to wait alone. I miss my old mom and the dusty road to home. Wish that she could listen to the words that break my heart in two. Stop saying them to me again. Love is great and good, I know. Maybe this time just before I go, you can hold me close again and turn back time.